Hello, this is Silvia Pavoni, investment editor of The Banker, and I'm here chatting with Jamaica's finance minister, Audley Shaw. Minister Shaw, you've just left the room where the meetings with the finance ministers of Latin America and the Caribbean has been held. What's the mood this afternoon during the meeting? What are your colleagues excited about and worried about?
Well, I think the mood, as I assess it, is generally an upbeat mood. We were addressed this morning by the managing director of the IMF, the general manager of the World Bank, and the president of the Inter-American Development Bank, Mr. Moreno. And then we've had discussions on how to deepen the integration process in the region. Economic integration is really what we're talking about. I'm not talking about political integration. I'm talking about trade and investment integration. And the issue is that coming out of the global meltdown in 2008, I think we're beginning to see now a resurgence in this region of investment. And that resurgence is being led, quite frankly, by the Latin American areas. Giants like Brazil. I mean, Brazil is talking about 6 and 7% growth rates for this year. They're talking about being worried about the economy being overheated, as a number of the other economies are talking. Now, I wish we were there. And this is my plan. I want to get to that point where we can start talking about worrying about adequacy of foreign exchange to finance investment at a certain growth level. But you know, one thing that struck me was the point the managing director of the IMF made when he says, listen, even 5, 6, and 7% rates of growth are not going to be adequate if we want to be sustainable in terms of being able to fight crises as they come upon us. So in other words, he's arguing for higher than 5, 6, 7% rates of growth. Now in the case of Jamaica and the smaller Caribbean region, we are not enjoying those higher levels of growth right now. And so we have to do our own recalibration in order to begin to achieve those levels of growth. Now, in my presentation earlier, I made the point that one of the things that the Caribbean needs to do is to be able to integrate more with Latin America.
How do you think the Caribbean region can achieve this? What are the challenges in integrating?
Well, you know, one presentation was made by a member of the IMF, of the IADB, in which they were talking about how we can increase trade between the Latin American region and the Caribbean region. And my position on that is very clear. In order for the Caribbean region to become a more vibrant trading partner with the Latin American region, we've got to build the capacity more in the Caribbean region. We've got to build out more infrastructure in our general economies, our educational infrastructure in terms of human resource development, our port facilities. Admittedly, Jamaica is doing pretty well at that now because we are preparing our ports to become the center for transshipment, especially when the Panama Canal opens up and those super cargo liners start coming through from the Far East. And when they come through the canal, the first point of the first port that they will see is Jamaica.
So we
have to build out the capacity there. But the critical point I believe I made to the conference and to the Latin American partners is that in order for us to be a more vibrant trade partner, work with us. Let the private sector in Latin America needs to come join with the private sector in the Caribbean. We need to have joint ventures. We need to have joint ventures where we bring in the technology that they have so well developed, whether the technology is in making agricultural production more productive. It is in renewable energy, and there we can not just benefit from their technologies, but also from third country markets like Canada, Europe, and the United States, because they have well-developed technology in things like solar power, wind power, and so on. But as you can see from the weather in Calgary, where the sun is not here, it's still in Jamaica. So we need to benefit more from solar technology. And the end result, I believe, of the sharing of technology and the joint venture in investments and so on will be that we will build our own growth levels, create our own wealth, and when you do that, then we become more vibrant trading partners, one with the other in the region. And that's a point I think that was well accepted by the conference.
And I would imagine that this need for developing infrastructure comes hand in hand with investments potential. So have you...
have investment in infrastructure as well. And you know, we must remember that a lot of the smaller islands might not have the agricultural capacity like Jamaica or Guyana does. But then again, if we are a vibrant community, expanded community, then we mustn't give lip service to it anymore. I mean, we want to see the Latin American people using the tourism locations of the Caribbean as their playground as well, you know, instead of going off to some far areas of the world. It would be cheaper for them to come on vacation in the Caribbean. So it's the other thing that I was very impressed with in the conference today was a group of professors who came. I think one of them is the president of the University of Alberta, who made a presentation today, and talking about innovation and you know, new ideas, new businesses for the future, and how the region as a whole, how we can benefit from that. That was also a very interesting presentation, series of presentations that were made today. But the future for us, I think, is where we have to, you know, there's no benefit in us just worrying about how bad things are and what are we going to do, and constantly going to the multilaterals seeking help. I believe we have to go to the multilaterals with a plan. This is what I've done in Jamaica in the Ministry of Finance. And this is why we have had such a good, strong working relationship with the IADB, with the World Bank, with the IMF. We have a package, as you know, of 2.4 billion US dollars, most of which has already come in. About 1.7 billion of that package is already in, based on the standby agreement. But that package has given us, along with the debt exchange, has given us and fundamental changes that are being made to the way we run government, the transparency that is associated with the budgetary process, the fiscal responsibility legislation framework that we have put into place, and other critical game-changing decisions that we have taken that are calculated to improve the quality of governance. We're looking at transforming the public sector. There's a green paper that we are looking at there now. And I'm working with the IDB and local stakeholders in Jamaica on a major program of tax reform. And all of these things are part of the scheme of presenting a better overall framework of governance, and that forms the basis for driving further confidence in the economy from both local entrepreneurs as well as overseas. We've seen from that recent issue to replace an instrument on the capital market, which was taken out by my predecessor in 2001, 400 million US dollars, borrowed at an interest rate of almost 12%. I replaced it a few weeks ago, went back to the capital market, replaced it. The $400 million we got, it was oversubscribed. There was $1.1 billion of bookings, and we only needed 400 million, and we got it at 7.95% interest rate. The difference there, almost 4 percentage points, is that in debt servicing, instead of paying 48 million US dollars of interest on that 400 million at 12%, I'll now be paying 32 million US dollars of interest on that same amount of money. Therefore, you combine that with the low-cost money I've been borrowing from the IADB. I borrowed 630 million from them last calendar year. I just signed an agreement for another $50 million with President Moreno here for human development initiatives. And that interest rate on that instrument, which is linked to LIBOR, as of yesterday was 1.14% interest rate. 1.14%. And so I'm simply saying that the part of the policy of this government, my government, and of which the government of which I'm the finance minister, is that we are driving interest rates down. Our central bank interest rate on the 30-day open market operations is now at 6.75%, the lowest it has been in the history of the Central Bank of Jamaica. Our dollar is stable, the exchange rate has been stable and revaluing for the past year. Inflation to the end of February, 11 months into the fiscal year, is at 6.7%, which is well within our targeted region. In fact, in January and February, we had negative inflation, minus 0.2% in January, minus 0.4% in February. Domestic agriculture is up. Our gross foreign exchange reserves are now at US $3.4 billion, the largest amount of foreign exchange reserves we have ever held in the Bank of Jamaica.
So we're having...
All of this means I'm building the foundation for a competitive economy and building the foundation for a substantial return to substantial growth in the Jamaican economy.
So we've seen really interesting figures. Thank you very much for your comments, Minister Shaw.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.